everyone, it's Alyssa here from the Township of Washington Public Library, and I am here with our very first adult craft for 2022. We're doing a paint-along, something nice and serene and calming. I thought would be a wonderful way to start our new year painting and crafting and trying new things together. I found an image on Pinterest that I really liked, but it didn't happen to have any instructions for how to do the paint-along, so I decided to create my own. And I'll link to the image where I found it in the description for our video. Try to give credit where credit is due. But it seemed like a nice simple painting, but pretty effective. So I'm going to show you what I've created here today. It's a winter scene, and it's a cardinal sitting on some wintry trees with a wintry background, and I'm going to show you how I did it. I've used a foam sponge brush, a thinner brush, and a bigger one. And then the paint colors are just blue, white, black, and red. I originally poured out a different shade of blue because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but this one ended up working out for me, and it's kind of wintry. So you don't really need that many paint colors, you don't really need that much paint, and you don't need that much skill. I know my cardinal is not perfect, but it's my cardinal, and it came out pretty darn good. This is the first time I've tried to do this painting, and the first time I've tried to paint a bird ever at all, and I'm pretty happy with it. So I'm going to show you how I did this. We're going to paint along, and we're going to relax, and I hope that we all have fun together. I hope that you enjoy it. So I'm going to show you how to do this, and put on some music, your favorite movie, grab a friend virtually, or somebody you live with, or somebody that you want to get together with, and let's try it out. All right? Okay, here we go. Okay, so to get started, you can see I have my paint here. I am going to do the background. So, like I said, we're trying to create some depth, so I want to do my background first before I start doing some trees. And again, it's just really simple, but it's going to be really lovely and effective for the winter. So this bright dark blue, we're really not going to use this color as it is much at all to begin with. So I want to start with some white, like stark white at the top, just to get my board wet and prepare it for some of the color mixing that we're going to do. And just make this look so fresh. All right. Just to get it wet so it's a little easier to blend. So I'm going to add some white pretty far down here. About halfway, really. Okay. And acrylic does dry quickly, so I'm going to try to work kind of fast. So I'm going to start mixing some white with blue here. Remember, more white, a little bit of color, and then you can add color. It's hard to take it back, but you can keep adding it. So I'm going to start with a little bit of blue and mix it into the white to get a nice pale color. And I'm going to blend it into the white. And it can be kind of uneven and jagged. It doesn't need to be smooth. Think of the wintry sky. There are all different kinds of textures and clouds and snow and this and that. So it doesn't need to be so even. And so we're going to have this get darker and darker as it goes. So I didn't place my blue right at the top where the lightest bit is going to be. But I'll blend it upwards. So right now I'm just kind of going down to lay the color. And then I can blend it up. Blend it upwards. And because I have some white down here, it helps to blend it. And just kind of keep going over it. Have some patience. You can go side to side, up and down, just to get your texture. You can use whatever brush you want for this. When I start to lay down color, I like to use the foam brush just to kind of get it going. And then you can add a little bit more blue each time and just kind of work on blending it. Do the next layer. Again, I'm going to kind of start farther down and then work my way up to blend the lighter stuff. That way most of the paint is kind of off of the brush or sponge, whichever you're using first. And then you can work it up and blend into where it's wet. And when in doubt, like so, I want to keep blending this harsh line out and make it a little softer and blend it a little easier. I'm just going to add some white to my brush. The white in this case is going to be such a nice tool for blending. See how that kind of helps to soften it? Because the white is what's most forward on my sponge, and then as I kind of use it up and get back down to where the blue pigment is still resting in the fibers, it just kind of helps to blend. And again, I'm going to kind of go up a little bit in some directions just to create movement in our sky, and then go back across. Again, add some more white. What you can also do with the sky, because it's like, you know, wintry sky, is take a drop of your black, and that desaturates the color a little bit, because sometimes, you know, you think of the winter sky as it can be very gray sometimes, right? So you can add a little bit of that if you'd like. I'll show you what that looks like. I'll mix that in just a little bit to desaturate a little bit. Right, and at first it looks terrible because black really pigments it. So I'm going to go in with some more blue. And then I'm going to go in with some more white. Right, and now I have this less saturated, dusky blue color. Just play with it, it's totally fine. I'm going to put that down here at the bottom too, to add some texture and variation. Sometimes I'm going to go up to create different texture and blend so it doesn't seem so perfect. Tamp this off a little bit and get some of the excess out. You can also use you can use a clean foam brush or regular brush, whatever, what have you, if you'd like. And again, I'm going to go back in with a little bit of white up top just for some blending. There's still some color on my brush, that's okay. It's the sky. The sky does that. It's not perfectly even. I'm going to add some more white back to what I had in here and some more blue to lighten it up a little bit and blend this layer. I mean, when you're doing the background, this is just sort of all meditative blending and fun. It's kind of like my favorite part because you really just kind of get to blend and So when you've played around with your background to your heart's content, we can go ahead and get started on our trees. So, and I learned this from Bob Ross, if you want to create depth and perspective, you have to do it in shades. So Bob Ross always taught me that when he was painting the mountains in the background, the ones that were the farthest away were the lightest in color. And think about it, when you look out at a beautiful landscape or the trees in your yard, the ones that are farther away are a different color than the ones that are closer to you, even though they're the same kind of trees. So it's just a depth technique. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a color that's similar to my darkest color. So I'm going to work from what I've been working on here, maybe just a little bit more saturated. I'm going to make my winter trees with it. Let me try this with one of the nice thin brushes, and just going to kind of work into the shape of a tree. And nature is not perfect. I'm just going to kind of go with it. And let it tell me where it wants to grow. That's a very Bob Ross thing to say, and I appreciate it. Also, what you can do is see how, because of the gradation of our scene, you can also add some lighter color in here as you go to blend it in so it doesn't seem so stark, and again, that will help with our depth. Do it while the paint is wet to get a nice blend. That's the nice thing about acrylic, though it does dry fast, it does blend nicely. You want to keep your brush pretty loaded, if you can see. And see how the bristles kind of start to splay a little bit when it gets dry. Just dunk it in a little bit, and that helps keep it smooth, and it also helps with the blend. So something that you can see me doing is I'm going back in and I'm lightening this up. If you've watched a painting video with me before, I can't believe I didn't listen to my own rule, which is don't forget that paint dries darker. So this is kind of the color right here that I think I want my forward tree to be here in the foreground when we put our cardinal on it. And so I'm lightening the rest of these up. Because, yeah, paint dries darker, so don't forget that. It's easier to, when it dries, just to kind of layer and blend and do what you gotta do. No worries. It can be pretty forgiving if you let it, so don't worry about it. And like I said, when it's still wet, when you're going layer and layer and layer, it's not perfect, but it's my art and it's fine. So I'm gonna let this dry for a little bit if I can stop, messing with it. And then what I'll do is I'll come with a much more saturated version of this light blue. Again, I'm not gonna use this, but I'm gonna use this. And come in with that and just kind of bring it across to have a bigger branch that our bird will be sitting on. Okay, so now I'm gonna try to make a color that is darker than this to bring across for my next section of trees. That's gonna go over the top. And then I'll just kind of follow the same principle. If I don't like the color once it starts drying, I can either darken it or lighten it, especially, you know, just kind of outline it, kind of put it, not outline, but roughly put it in. And then I can just expand on it and make it lighter, make it darker, keep it blending, because once I get the shape in and I know where I want to put it and I see how it's drying, I can go ahead and just kind of keep working it while it's wet. And so I'm just going to, it's going to kind of start from I'm going to start it from off the, it's always daunting. I feel like I'm going to ruin my work, but you know what, here we go. So I'm going to kind of just, there we go, no going back. And it's a bigger tree because it's closer here in the foreground. And I'm going to kind of try to see where it wants to live. Here. Don't worry about it looking patchy. We're going to even some of this all out. We're going to keep reloading your brush just to keep it smooth. Let it get thicker. The closer it gets to, you know, what we imagine is the tree trunk out here. And trees don't need to be perfect straight lines. They're kind of lumpy and bumpy, and it'll tell you where it wants to go. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And I think I like this shape, so yeah, I'm just kind of going in and fixing my lines to smooth them out, make them thicker in some places. Fill them in because, you know, this board kind of has a bit of a texture, so I do want to fill in where I might see some of these little squares from the texture of the board. That's okay. And then I think, so I want my cardinal to be, remember, our focal point, and I kind of want it to be right here. So I'm going to have another big branch come along. So here we go. As you can see, I'm going back in now and lightening it up a little bit, but also I'm not being perfect as this tree, again, is here in our foreground. I'm kind of letting some streaks happen and the colors not be mixed perfectly just because it creates texture. If you did the fall barn painting, I purposefully created more realistic texture and light and highlights. That's not really what I'm doing here, letting this be more abstract, but it doesn't need to all be one tone entirely, so I'm just kind of letting some of the streaks from the paint show through and have their own kind of fun. But I did see, you know, kind of some darkening, and I thought it was maybe too much of a contrast to the background trees, so I lightened it up a little bit, but I'm leaving some of the dark, I'm adding some dark, and I'm just playing with the way it all blends, because now I'm working with the wet paint after I got my initial shape in, and I'm having some fun with it. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put one more little tree here, just because I want to add some more texture and shape, and also the inspiration picture that I took it from had that, and I really liked having a little foreground tree over here. So I'm just gonna go in and touch up any places where I feel like I didn't like the way it dried. Now that this one is wet and this one is dry, I see a couple spots where I don't like the canvas texture coming through, so I'm gonna do that. And a couple places where I might want to add in some streaks of light and dark. Right? I want there to be texture. You can make yours as flat or as textured as you'd like, right? So I'm just giving you the building block. And you can add as much or as little as you would like. I think I'm gonna leave this alone. I'm gonna let it dry a little bit, and then we're gonna work on our cardinal, which is maybe the most daunting part for me, because that has to be a recognizable shape. And I don't think the cardinal is going to tell me where it wants to be and what it wants to look like, as well as the trees. We're gonna try. So I'm gonna let this dry for just a few minutes. I love that acrylics dry so fast. I'm gonna wash off my brush. You can see I'm doing that over here. And I'll come back for the cardinal. Are you ready to make a big change to our winter trees? Okay, so we are going to create our little bird body. I'm gonna do it right over here. Give myself some room. I'm nervous, but if you want to sketch it out first, you can sketch it out first. I might actually go in with some white. I don't know. Just to like trace out my body and make myself feel less destructive. I don't know, you can use a pencil, do what you gotta do. Let me just do a little dab of white paint and just make a little side oval, right? Because the bird is gonna be kind of once I put it in white, I'll be okay putting it in red. It's fine. It'll take me a little time to cover it up, but right, like a little egg, a little bird olive, bird bean. Just make sure it's actually sitting on that branch. I mean, we will add its feathers in and everything. Okay, all right, I'm feeling good. I'm gonna go in with the red. Here we go. Okay. Don't dip your brush in the white. It's fine. I don't know why I did that. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and make my little bird egg. Not an egg, but it's kind of like that's the shape, or like an olive, like I said, right? I'm gonna go in, do my outline and fill it in. Kind of like with the trees, doesn't need to be perfect on the first pass, but I do want to kind of have a nice solid outline so I don't accidentally turn it into an amorphous blob the more I try to fix it up, right? But the inside, just don't worry about that yet. Another scary part is now we're going to place the tail. So in my head, I'm going to say the tail is almost like a triangle coming out here, right? So, but like very elongated. So I'm actually going to kind of like dip into this and like sketch it with some, right? Again, you can use a pencil. I don't know why I'm being too lazy to get a pencil. All right. Right, but then they have their feathers, so it's not exactly perfect. Okay, and then we've got like the little bird head, right? So kind of like here. Right, so we're gonna have like this little peak where their beautiful feathers are here. His beak there, and his little majestic neck like that, and we'll refine it and get that beak down to a point and kind of expand him. Right now he's got a weird chicken neck, but that's kind of where we're going, right? do the tail feathers first. Take a deep breath, it's okay. Lighten up, don't have so much pressure. That makes your lines thinner if you lighten up. And then, you know, it feels a little less daunting. And I'm kind of going up into the tail with my strokes here, because to me I feel like, right, so some of them I went down, but some of them now I'm going up as I'm creating the shape of the tail feathers. And I guess for me that's feeling kind of feathery and like a good shape. And again, now I'm just filling in the tail. Ooh, little piece of blue paint fell off. Okay. Fill it in, refine and adjust. I'm not worrying about making the tail have such solid, perfect lines like I was with the trees. Trees aren't, you know, the same texture as a bird, so don't worry about perfection here. Actually, the less solid that I have it, the better I feel. Okay, doing good, doing good. Right now I'm bringing my stroke downwards to create this kind of fluffy, easy tail feather texture. Okay. All right, let's work on the head now. Let's go back in with this shape that I have and fix it up a little bit. I may have given him a little bit of a long neck, but I think we can fix that by adjusting the size of his head, and that's okay. Here to show you that paint doesn't need to be such a terrifying medium. I have no idea what I'm doing. This is the first time that I've painted this image. So now I'm thinking about that bird beak, nice and triangular. And also I'm thinking about the fact that now the bird needs some wings, some shape, right? This perfectly round shape is not exactly the way a bird should look, so let's add some fluff. Add some fluff here. Let's give this bird some wings. Not perfect, I'm not perfect, I'm not a painter, but I'm working on it. We will add a little dimension with the black paint. That's why we have some black paint. Do the same on this side, kind of where I bulked him out a little bit. We can add some hint of feather. And in the original image, what we're doing is we're laying this down, and what I'll do eventually is I'll actually bring the branch back up in front of him again. So his tail will be behind him and he's sitting on the branch. That's the inspiration picture that I have. So I'm gonna do it that way because I like the way it looks. I'm just creating some feathers back here. Let's get some black and do a little red and black. And remember, a little black goes a long way, so I don't need to mix in that much, but I do want it to be I want it to be black, but I don't want it to be brown. But I don't want it to be red. Alright, and I'm gonna add some dimension here. So let's add some shading in here. Some shape to the tail feathers. Remember, if you don't like it, just pick up some red on your brush and go over it, and oh look, it's blending, right? You can just say you're blending it. And it ends up kind of coming out nicely. We're just adding some texture and dimension to this little fella. And keep going over with this red, then black, then red, then black, and until you get the texture and the shades that you want. Right, see how this is blending because this is still wet, my brush is wet, and I keep doing the red and the black while it's all wet. Starting to blend on its own and do its own thing. Right, I also want some dimension here at the wing that I'm giving it so you can kind of see. Got a little wing there. And sometimes you need to wipe your brush off because you feel like you've got too much. That's okay. Right, here we go. Here's some red, and it's a little less muddied by the black, but I'm still dragging a little black up to create dimension and shading. No problemo. And now I want a little more black. And it's kind of a lot of back and forth, and that's okay. Alright, so a little daunting. I'm going to do red with just a little bit of black. You can grab, this is going to create kind of like a brownishy, orangey, tarnished kind of a thing, kind of a look. And we're going to use that for the beak. Right, so it's definitely darker than the body, but it's not the same color that we're using for our shading. I'm going to use that to create the beak color. And again, remember, it dries darker, so it's okay. Alright, so here's the little bird beak. Cute little bird. And then I'm going to take some of the darker black, and this is kind of nerve-wracking, make the shape of the cardinal's face, which had a lot of black around it. So I'm going to do some black around here, and let it kind of swoop this way, and get some around its little face, and down from its little beak, and it's taking shape, surprisingly. Right? I mean, I don't think it's perfect, but you know what this is, right? Doing its job. And this definitely doesn't need to be perfect. This is feathers. This is nature. But I do want it to be kind of dark, close to the beak, and then go up. I'm gonna do the same thing that you just saw me do, going in with some straight black to some of these areas here, just to create a stronger contrast. A little dimension here by where he's got another wing. Go with some red. Again, layer, 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 layer. That's painting. That's pretty good looking bird, you know. Pretty good. Now I'm gonna use just the tippy tippy tip of my brush and some pure white paint and give the bird a little eye, a little glint. Okay, I'm making it a little bigger. Kind of looking a little silly bird. Okay, here we go. Okay, that's not bad. That's not bad. It's not the most beautiful cardinal, but it'll do. Alright. And I'm gonna go ahead and go back. And like I said, I'm gonna let this dry a little bit, but I'm gonna bring the branch over so that the tail's sticking out the back. In the meantime, we can also add some berries to our branches, you know, make it kind of have some contrast. I'm only going to do that on this top layer. You can also use the back side, kind of like we did for the eye, but the whole thing, to mark out your berries if you'd like, right? And then you can kind of fill them in. Now that the tail is dry, I'm going to go in with my blue paint to match my foreground branches and cover up that tail. Then I'm going to take some more of the black and use that opportunity to add some more shadowing in. And that's it. That's our picture. That is our cardinal. It's quite cute. I'm quite surprised with myself. I'm not a painter, not an artist, not good at drawing, but I do like to craft, and I'm quite pleased. I think it's pretty cute. And I love how striking the red is up here, and then all the different layers of tree. It's quite nice. I really like it. I hope that you like it too. And you can play with it, make it whatever you want. You could have the sky not have so much contrast like I did. You can have the trees not have so much contrast. You could do more layers of trees. Do whatever you'd like. It's your painting. But I think this is pretty fun, and I'm pretty happy with it. So I hope you are too. I hope you have fun with it. Let's take a look at the whole thing. Right there it is. It's the whole thing. It's pretty cute. I like it. I'm pretty proud of myself. Like I said, I'm not good at drawing. I know his head's kind of weird shaped. Maybe yours comes out better or worse or differently than mine, or maybe you don't do a cardinal because you're too scared to draw. But just try it. Just try it. Try it for me. Try it for you. Have fun with it. And of course, as always, I'd love to see what you did. There it is. So I will see you next month. Thank you so much for joining me in crafting and painting with me today. And I hope you have a nice moment of relaxation as you enjoy your painting time. All right, see you next time.